Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I have a video today for y'all. As you can see, I have hardly any makeup on. This is how I come on when I am about to do some kind of get ready with me or makeup tutorial for y'all, because I always come on with my brows. And I've had quite a few questions lately to do an updated brow routine. My technique hasn't changed that much, but my products may have, because I think the last one I uploaded was like years ago. So I wanted to come on and show you how to do my brows, because I do not have many of them. As you have seen in my skincare videos, if you've seen them, I don't have much brows. So it is something that I have had to get used to applying every day for a very long time. So if you want to know how I go from 40% brow to this, let's jump into it. Okay, this is my face straight out of skincare. So the very first thing that I do in my makeup routine is my brows. So this is going to seem like a pretty extensive routine because there's quite a few products. I include kind of my eyelids in with my brows, so I'm going to show you that part as well. But it truly only takes me about 2 to 3 minutes now to do this because I do it every single day. Even if I'm not wearing makeup, my brows will be applied because, as you can see, I don't have any. I have hypothyroidism, and ever since I was diagnosed with that, pretty much the outer half of my brows ceased to grow. And for some reason, they just fell out. Like, I didn't pluck them. They just went bye-bye. So I do put my brows on every single day. Now, the first thing I do is I lay a little bit of a layer of powder down onto my brows because I've just done my skincare. It's actually been probably about an hour, but even still, I have SPF in my brows. So I don't want anything to hinder the efficacy of the pencil that I'm going to use. So I like to pretty much mattify the area where I'm going to be drawing on the brow. So I'm going to take my Jane Iredale. This is the Pure Press base in the shade Ivory, which I use quite often. You'll see how many different ways I use it in this video. But this is what I use to kind of lay down that powder layer. So I'll just take any kind of brush. I don't even know what kind of brush this is. I've had it for so long, its name has been rubbed off. But I'll just take a light dusting of that powder and apply it all over this part where I actually have a brow, all the way over to this part where I'm going to be drawing on the brow. Again, this just ensures that the pencil is not going to slip and slide. It's going to put the product where I want it and nowhere else. Now, the pencil I'm going to be using today has technically been reformulated. I have quite a few backups, and that's why I'm still using them. However, the new reformulation of it is just as good. It's just different colorings, and this is the Jane Iredale eyebrow pencil, and I use the shade Blonde. Now, this shade of blonde is much warmer in tone than the new shade of blonde, which I really like. I actually have an empty of it. I went through my entire pencil of that, and I will be repurchasing that, but I need to go through this first. Now, I'm going to link a couple of other brow pencils that I love. The Sigma brow pencil is great. The Beauty Pie brow pencil is great. Those are kind of my 3 favorite brow pencils, so I will link all of them, but I'm going to be using this Jane one because that's the one that I currently have. My favorite brow pencils always have a spoolie on one end because I do take that spoolie, and with the little amount of brows I have, I will push them up. That gives me a clear indication of where within the hair that I do have, I need to fill in some gaps. I always start from the bottom and work my way up, filling in any gaps in just fine hair-like strokes. That's why I prefer the very thin tipped pencils like this versus the slanted ones or the ones that are a little bit bigger, because I need precision. So I just put a little bit, and then I'm just going to take it and brush it through to kind of diffuse any harshness. Now, I do have a natural inclination to where my arch is. And what I do to find that is I come right here to where kind of my brow stops. And that is pretty much where my arch would be. And I go upwards. Make an arch. Now I'm going to use powder on top of this. The pencil does not have to be perfected because that's what I use the powder for. But I make that arch, and then I will bring it down. Now, the rule of thumb for where the tail of your brow should be is if you take a pencil on the side of your nose and connect it with the outer part of your eye. That is where the tail should end. Sometimes I go farther down than that because I really like an extended brow, but that is the typical rule of thumb. Okay, so I have kind of the arch that I want. Now I'm going to take the spoolie and I'm going to kind of lay those brow hairs down because I don't want a super thick brow. If I were to leave them up and then use that as my guideline, it would be thicker than I want. So I'm going to lay them down now that I know where I needed to, fill them in some. And I'm going to start right where the actual hair starts. Lay my pencil on its side and very lightly draw a line that connects the top of my brow with that kind of faux arch that I made. So this is the initial shape. Okay, this is a guideline for me as to where I want to put the powder. I'm going to do it on the other eyebrow. And I feel like we all have brows that are better and easier to do than others. This one always ends up looking better than this one, but I'm going to do the pencil on this one real quick. See how the arch on this one's always so much better than this one. This one tends to always kind of be a little bit more flat. But here's the thing. I've always heard that brows are sisters, not twins. Sorry, but brows are cousins. Sometimes very distant cousins, not even necessarily siblings, and that's okay. I feel like a less perfected brow is more natural than one that looks like it has literally been painted on to the precision of the nth degree. Maybe that's just because I can't get mine perfected and it makes me feel better saying that, but I do truly believe that. Now this is when I'm going to go in and kind of fix this initial shape, and I'm going to use a powder. And right now my favorite powder is the Sigma Color Shape Brow Powder Duo, and I am in the shade Light. Now, if you could tell, I definitely use the lighter shade more than I do the darker shade, but there are times when I need that. I'm going to start out with the lightest shade. I love these because they have more of that taupey olive undertone versus something that is true brown or has any kind of warmth in it. I definitely do not want that. I want something to be a little bit more taupey and ash colored in tone because that is going to match my natural hair color the best. So I'm going to take my old, much loved brow brush. This is the Anastasia number 12 brush. The spoolie is about to fall off of it. It's very loose, but I have used and abused and loved this brush for years. So when you're looking at where you want the inside of your brow to start, typically you would take that pencil or any kind of brush and lay it onto the side of your nose going straight up. And if you see, that is pretty much where my natural brow on this side starts. But if I put it on this side, there is a tiny little gap. So I need to fill in a little bit more on the inner corner on this side than I do this. This is when I will take my brush, I will place it like this, going straight onto the brow. And at the very front of my brow, I'm going to match that upper part that kind of had that little slant. I'm going to match it up. I like personally for my brows to be a little squared off on the inside. Some people don't like that, and you wouldn't do that step if you're that person. And then I'm going to just take that same shade and kind of fill in exactly where the pencil is, but I'm going to take this opportunity to kind of sharpen that arch just a little bit. And the brush is laying on its side this whole time. Now this is just showing you how I do my brows. Obviously, if you have a good amount of natural brow, you're probably going to do this a little bit different. But see how that just kind of perfected it just a little bit. Now I'm going to take this and I'm going to go a little bit farther in on the front of this brow to even it up. Sometimes it's not dark enough and it makes it very obvious that I have no natural brow there. And that's when I'll go into that darker shade. But right now it looks pretty good. So again, this one always tends to have a little bit more of a sharper arch, and I'm okay with that. Now at this point, I go in and I will prime my eyelids. I use my NARS Soft Matte Concealer in the shade Honey, and you're gonna see how much of a difference. If you've never seen me do this, you're gonna see such a difference because I do have a lot of discoloration. You need the tiniest amount. And this is a Bobbi Brown full coverage touch-up brush. And I'm just stippling that into my eyelid onto my eyelid, not into my eyelid. And then I'm gonna take this same powder that I used and I'm gonna set that so that it helps it not crease. And it has a powder finish ready for any powder eyeshadows that I'm going to apply for the day. So you can see discoloration is completely gone, and that's how I prep for shadow. Okay, so I'm not done. Couple more steps. At this point, I will go in and see if I feel like I need to lighten my brows any. And some people might be like, well, why did you use that color powder if you knew you wanted it lighter? I'm using the lightest pencil and the lightest powder in these two brands. Yes, there are other lighter ones. NARS has one. I can't remember the name of it. I have it in my kit, but it's for my fairest of like fair clients. That's too light. So I have found this just works well. The colors that I use are dark enough to show up to show me what I'm doing. And then if I need to lighten it, all I have to do is take a little bit of a denser brush. This is an Inglot 27P brush, but anything just dense and flat. And again, go into the same powder. You can see how much I use it every day. Just put a little bit, tap it off, and then I'm just gonna press it very lightly into my brow just to lighten them up a little bit. I don't do that every day. I, determine whether or not I need it after I get done, but it is an option that I use probably more than 50% of the time, so I wanted to include it. And the final step for my brows is a newer one that I have been incorporating probably in the past 2 months. And I use the Sigma Cleanup and Highlight Brow Crayon. Now, I don't really need to clean anything up. I hardly have any brows to start with, so that's not why I use this. But I do like to use it as a highlight right underneath my brow. And I don't even start all the way over here. I start pretty much midway and make sure it's under the arch. I'll just kind of draw it on like that, and then I'll take some kind of brush and blend it out. Very subtle and definitely shows up more, I feel like, if I have eyeshadow on, but it still gives a lifted effect. And I like these crayons more than I like using a separate concealer because I feel like they're a little bit more stable, like they're easier to control than using concealer to carve out the brows. Now, if you have more unruly brows, that might be something you want to do, but I find this works great for me. Now, I do want to touch on a question that I have had in the past and I've had recently as well about very coarse gray eyebrows. And as we all know, especially anybody who has gray hair, it does grow back much coarser than our original hair. And when that starts happening in the eyebrows, it can be a little hard to manage. So there's a couple of things that I do for clients that have coarse gray brows that tend to be curlier, a little bit more unruly, and especially if your entire brow isn't gray, they can stand out not only because of their color, but because of how different in texture they are from your other brow hairs. I don't have any myself yet to demonstrate on, but I will say for my clients, I will do one of two things. I will either take a very heavy duty tinted brow gel that is going to most closely match your other original brow hairs and use that to help not only tint the gray hair to match, but also help lay it down a little bit, control it a little bit more. The most heavy duty brow gel that I have ever used is the Anastasia Beverly Hills brow gel. Other ones are great too, but if you want something that's really going to stick it in place and not have it move, then that is one to look at. Now, it does make your brows a little bit crunchy, for lack of a better word, but I don't think you're gonna find it much different than the actual texture of the gray brows to start with. And then another option is to use a brow pomade on a very small brow brush like this. Put the tiniest amount and basically paint your gray brow to match the others. Now, that's not gonna help as much as a gel as far as the unruliness of it, but if you find that your gray brows aren't as curly and don't stick out as much, but you really just want to match them with others, the pomade's gonna be the best bet because it is very long lasting. If you are not putting it in your entire brow, the texture doesn't change as much, and it's a way to just kind of blend them in and make it look like one seamless brow. So hopefully that helps for those questions, and hopefully this has helped as well to show you how I do my brows. Again, they're distant cousins. not sisters, and certainly not twins, and that's okay, at least in my opinion. Let's strive for feeling good. Let's not strive for perfection because it's just not attainable. So I will list everything that I use down in the description box. Thanks so much for watching. Be sure and like and subscribe before you leave so you don't miss out on any future videos, and I hope you all go out and have a very blessed day.